Hello, good evening. You're welcome to the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Please be on your feet as the speakers and the chair take their seats. Kindly put your phones on silent. Thank you.
Please, you may resume your seats. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone here in the room and online. I want to warmly welcome you all to the third and final day in our 3-day series of Public Forum 2026. The president of the Academy, past presidents, vice presidents of the Academy, fellows of the Academy, distinguished speakers, students, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again making time to come and participate with us in this year's Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences Public Forum. The forum began on Monday and we continued yesterday, and today we are here for the third day. A special appreciation to all of you who have joined us for the first 2 days. If you missed the first 2 days, I recommend you visit the Academy's YouTube channel where you can access the very exciting conversations that we've had over the past 2 days. And I believe when you do that, you will agree with me that we have had very interesting conversations. The speakers have been really exciting to listen to and thought-provoking, and I'm sure today would also be the same. As you can see on our banner, the conversations have been held on the theme, Citizens and Democratic Consolidation in Ghana, Rights, Obligations, and Duties. For our concluding session today, we turn our attention to the rather troubling trend of unconstitutional overthrow of governments and the growing cynicism towards democratic institutions occurring in the West Africa sub-region. Today's sub-theme is complicity of citizens in action in democratic reversals, lessons for Ghana. And it will examine how citizen inaction, apathy, and partisan complicity can pave the way for democratic reversals and the lessons we can draw from history and contemporary realities to ensure that Ghana remains resilient against the currents of democratic decline. As usual, this event is being streamed live on the Academy's Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook platforms. We are especially grateful to those who have joined online. I would say if you know somebody who you haven't called to join, you can call them. This is the time to call them that we are starting, so they should join us. Now it is my singular honor to introduce to you the chair for this evening's session. The chair for this evening's session is a retired professor at the University of Ghana. He has taught and trained many students in several African universities, especially in Nigeria, Kenya, and his native Ghana. One of the people he has taught is the one speaking. He has published extensively in reputable international journals and also provided several feature articles on the environment and biodiversity at the local and international levels. He has chaired many high-profile local and international environmental and biodiversity meetings. He is a founding bureau member and former vice chair representing Africa of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. He has chaired the steering committee of the International Partnership for Satoyama Initiative, a joint UNU and the Ministry of Japan initiative since its establishment in 2010. He chairs the trusteeship board of the Arocha Ghana, an NGO that advocates for nature and its conservation and sustainable use. He also chairs the Tropenbos Ghana board. Our speaker was awarded the 2014 International Prestigious Midori Prize for Biodiversity and the John C. Phillips Memorial Medal for 2020, the highest global conservation award of the IUCN. I believe you agree with me that our chairperson is really the one who should be chairing this meeting, and we are all happy to have our chairperson, Professor Alfred Appel Otin-Yeboah, to be in charge of affairs. Prof, we are ready for you, your audience.
Thank you very much. The President of the Academy, past presidents, Vice President Art, Fellows of the Academy, invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The last 2 days, that's Monday and Tuesday, have seen us listening to opinions on the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences Public Forum 2026 under the theme Citizens and Democratic Consolidation in Ghana, Rights, Obligations, and Duties. The first day considered the sub-theme, the imperatives of citizenship in sustaining and consolidating Ghana's democracy. This particular discussion unearthed many paradoxes associated with or found within our first, second, third, and fourth republics in the areas of social contract, political representation, dignity to the citizen, and principles of social justice. And such phrases as the state being a criminal enterprise surfaced very prominently. And this led to a special call to citizens from passive situation to active citizenship or citizenry. The second day considered the sub-theme, the citizen as sovereign in a democracy, rights, obligations, and responsibilities. The speakers indicated that the citizen is sovereign, or the citizen as sovereign And the following discussion focused on the challenges to the citizen from misinformation, disinformation through the media, and the dilemma and the concept of freedom from what and for what. And it was noted citizens as a heterogeneous or homogeneous group constitute the unfinished business of democratization in our country. Today, which is marking the last of the series, is poised to consider a sub-theme which is titled Complicity of Citizen Inaction or Inaction in Democratic Reversals, Lessons for Ghana. I am delighted to mention to you that this evening, the two speakers that have been lined up to speak to us are going to discuss this particular theme or sub-theme from different directions. The first topic to be discussed is democracy without dividend, or democracy without dividends. Why citizen apathy threatens Ghana's democratic future. And that will be delivered by our first speaker, Kweku Nkrumah, who I will introduce shortly. The second topic is titled From Passive Spectators to Active Citizens, Building a Culture of Accountability in Ghana's Democracy. And this will also be addressed by Mrs. Beauty Emefa Nate. I will introduce them at the same time, and they will give their lectures one after the other. And let me inform you that after the lectures have been presented, you, the audience, will have an opportunity to ask questions. It will not be a situation where you are actually going to give another talk, but to ask questions. So, introducing the first speaker, Kweku Nkrumah. He is a governance expert. He is a governance, finance, and institutional reform expert with over 25 years' experience across civil society, public sector, private sector, and strategic advisory. He served as project coordinator for the Constitutional Review Committee 2025, contributing to key reforms on decentralization, electoral independence, and accountability. He has also worked with the Electoral Commission. His career roles include working with Abantu for development and auditing EU-funded macro projects in northern Ghana. He's a participant in a USAID anti-corruption program, or a participant in a USAID anti-corruption program. He is recognized for thought leadership on governance and public accountability. He holds an MBA from the University of Leicester, UK, and a BSc in accounting from the University of Ghana, Legon. The second speaker, Mrs. Beauty Emefa Nate, the Executive Director Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. Beauty is the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, GACC. She has over 18 years of experience in governance, anti-corruption, and development. She has played key roles in shaping reforms and leading initiatives at national and international levels. She is a board member of the Global Civil Society Coalition for the UNCAC, a former chair of the Governing Council of the Africa Freedom of Information Center, AFIC, and a member of Ghana National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, High-Level Implementation Committee, HILIC. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure now to present to you the speakers. And as I indicated, Kweku and Juboisian will speak first, and he will be followed by Mrs. Beauty Emefa Nate. So, audience, that's your speakers. Thank you.
Distinguished Chair, Madam President, and fellows of the Academy, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I am indeed honored to address this important public forum organized by the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences on the topic, Democracy Without Dividends, Why Citizen Apathy Threatens Ghana's democratic future. Let me begin with a simple but uncomfortable truth. Democracy does not suddenly collapse through coup or popular uprisings. It often decays quietly through citizen apathy. Today, Ghana stands at a paradoxical moment in its democratic journey. On the one hand, we are celebrated globally as a model of democratic stability in Africa. On the other hand, beneath that stability lies a troubling undercurrent, an erosion of citizen belief in the value of democracy itself. This undercurrent is growing and dangerous, as we increasingly have a citizenry that is disengaged, disillusioned, and doubtful that democracy works for them. When citizens no longer see democracy delivering tangible improvements in their lives, they begin to withdraw. And when citizens withdraw, democracy weakens. Democracy is often reduced to elections, institutions, constitutions, but in reality, democracy is something deeper. Democracy is a promise that citizens will have a voice, power will be accountable, opportunities will be fair, and life will gradually improve. Elections are only the entry point. They are not the destination. A democracy that delivers elections but fails to deliver results becomes hollow. And when democracy becomes hollow, citizens begin to question its value. Let us be clear. Citizens do not eat elections. They experience outcomes. They experience whether they can find jobs, whether they can afford food, whether their children receive quality education, whether hospitals will treat them, whether roads are safe, and whether justice is fair. When these outcomes fail, democracy begins to lose meaning. Let us confront the evidence of the lived experiences of many Ghanaian citizens today. There is economic pressure on many Ghanaians, and there is growing disillusionment, especially among the youth. According to the Afrobarometer Round 9 report, unemployment remains high at around 19 to 20%, rising to nearly 30% among young people. During the last May Day celebrations in May 2026, the Trades Union Congress even estimated youth unemployment at 34%. 77% of Ghanaian youth describe economic conditions as bad, and 67% say conditions are worsening. According to the World Bank's Ghana Economic Update 9th edition, between 2012 and 2023, while the number of Ghanaians in employment rose by just 250,000, the working age population expanded by nearly 2.7 million, largely due to a demographic surge in youth. Have we not heard successive governments claim that they created millions of jobs for the youth during the period between 2012 and 2023? But behind the statistics are real lives. How often do you hear young Ghanaians say, "My plan is to leave Ghana. Things are not working for me here." Or, "If I get a chance, I will go anywhere, even if it is dangerous." We are now seeing young people living in large numbers, and indeed the World Bank acknowledges this, increased out-migration in its 2025 economic update. Young people are taking extreme risks abroad, to the extent that even foreign conflicts are drawing our young people out of economic desperation. According to Ghana's foreign minister, 55 Ghanaians have so far died fighting for Russia against Ukraine. That is not a democratic dividend. That is economic desperation with deadly consequences. When citizens begin to exit, not just physically, but mentally, democracy is already under strain. One of the issues that everyday Ghanaian, everyday citizen, ordinary citizens are concerned about is corruption. So I'll dwell a lot on this issue of corruption. On Tuesday, 24th March 2026, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, Mr. John Jinapor, told Parliament's Committee on Assurances that the Pualugu Multipurpose Dam project has stalled because the contractor allegedly took funds and left the country, abandoning the project. On Monday, 18th May 2026, President John Mahama, while talking about the Agenda 111 Hospitals project, revealed that with some of the projects, contractors took the mobilization and never went to site, adding that the government is actively pursuing said contractors to recover funds and ensure accountability. As a citizen, I ask two basic questions. One, why were the contractors not required to submit an advance payment security before the mobilization was paid? Something that is supposed to be normal in public procurement. Two, If there was no advance payment security, which the state would have claimed from the insurance companies to recover the mobilization paid to the runaway contractors, why is no Ghanaian official being held accountable for that serious omission? Or is it indeed the case that public officers receive corrupt payments from the mobilization paid to contractors, and so look the other way even when said contractors fail to perform or run away with the taxpayers' money? In 2025, Ghana scored 43 out of 100 on the Corruption Perceptions Index and was ranked 76 out of 182 countries. The country loses an estimated $3 billion annually to corruption. We hear details of blatant theft during Public Accounts Committee hearings. But again, this is not abstract. You hear business people, including young entrepreneurs, say, if you don't know someone or pay something, your business will not move. That is not just corruption. It is exclusion from opportunity, especially for young people. Across the country, one sentiment is becoming dangerously common. It does not matter who wins power, nothing changes. You hear people say, they come every 4 years, make promises, and then disappear. We fought for democracy because we believed it will bring development. Today we have democracy, but where is the development? These are not just complaints. These are warning signals that we must take seriously. Citizen apathy is often misunderstood as harmless. It is not. It leads to A, low civic participation, B, weak accountability, as evidenced by the Auditor General's annual reports to Parliament. C, it leads to electoral disengagement, to the extent that voters are now openly willing to sell their votes to the highest bidder, because they don't expect any other dividend from our democracy between electoral cycles once they have cast their ballots. Earlier this year, we saw NDC delegates in the Ayawaso East constituency taking away money, television sets, and other items in exchange for their votes. Indeed, Ghana Web interviewed a 73-year-old voter in that constituency on the day of the by-election. Here are a few quotes from that interview. A hungry man is an angry man. I am hungry, and you are telling me to join the queue and vote. I have a big problem. I joined the NDC in 1979, and my friend, let me tell you, I have not got anything. Every day I join the line, go and vote, join the line, go and vote. But I said, this time, this particular day, as I'm talking to you, I will never vote. I have told my 4 children, they are all NDC members, to stay in the house and wait for my instruction. Why should I keep voting for people and not benefit from anything? Apathy also leads to increased tolerance by citizens for authoritarian alternatives. As you would notice from Afrobarometer round 9 and 10 reports, what should be most worrying is that over 2 years after the Afrobarometer round 9 survey, some Ghanaian citizens spontaneously cheered on a military leader of a neighboring country at the inauguration of our democratically elected president. Think about that. And that military leader, who seemed to be a hero and role model for those Ghanaian citizens, recently said, and I quote, "People need to forget about the issue of democracy. Democracy is not for us. Most dangerous of all, when apathy sets in, citizens stop defending democracy. If we think this cannot happen in Ghana, our very own history tells us otherwise. Tomorrow is June 4th. For those who are old enough to know what that signifies in our history, you understand the significance of the date. What is more, the current Ghanaian trajectory mirrors patterns seen elsewhere. We saw the Arab Spring between 2010 and 2011, where democratic systems came under severe strain when economic expectations were not met. As you would find in the book, Eruptions of Popular Anger, The Economics of the Arab Spring and Its Aftermath, these protesters raised their voices to demand improved economic opportunities and social and economic justice, and to express their dissatisfaction with corruption and deterioration in the quality of life, particularly public service quality. Some of the reasons cited for the Arab Spring, based on views in Middle East and North African countries, were the economic situation, corruption, as well as social and economic justice. In terms of government services, Arab Spring protesters were dissatisfied with affordable housing, efforts to increase high-quality jobs, availability of quality healthcare, availability of quality education in schools, public transport, roads, and highways. Do these grievances sound familiar in Ghana today? We also saw what happened in the 2022 uprising in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka experienced decades of economic mismanagement, rising public debt, and declining living standards. The result was mass protests, collapse of political authority, and forced resignation and exile of the leadership. In Latin America, countries like Argentina, Venezuela, and Brazil have experienced cycles where democratic dissatisfaction led to populist waves, institutional weakening, and economic instability. The lesson is clear. When democracy does not deliver, citizens will either withdraw or eventually revolt. Now, let us be clear. Every condition that weakens democracy elsewhere is emerging in Ghana today. Economic frustration, youth disillusionment and disengagement, perceived and actual corruption, inequality, loss of trust in institutions, and lack of development. Traveling around the country with the Constitution Review Committee in 2025, the low level of development I witnessed greatly disappointed me as a citizen. But listening to the frustrations of fellow citizens who participated in the committee's engagements showed that the feeling is pervasive across the country. If the issues of economic frustration and lack of development are left unaddressed, I'm afraid that Ghana's democracy will not be immune to what has transpired in other countries. To restore the faith of citizens, democracy must deliver jobs, fair opportunity, quality services, and visible development. Without these, apathy will set in. Apathy is not a failure of citizens. It is a rational response to unmet expectations. So here are a few recommendations to regain and retain citizen confidence in Ghana's democracy. 1, treat youth unemployment as a national emergency. We are often told that youth unemployment is a national security threat. So I ask, where is the urgency with which we must deal with something that is a national security threat? Well, if the way we have been dealing with Galamsey, which has been described as an existential threat, is anything to go by, then perhaps one should not be surprised that we are not treating unemployment with the urgency it deserves. According to the World Bank, Ghana's youth population is projected to increase by 1.6 million over the next decade, reaching 11 million by 2035. If youth unemployment is a national security threat, can you imagine the threat that this democracy would face when we have 11 million young people by 2035, and 34% or 3.7 million of them are unemployed? Speaking to the media only last month, the UNDP resident representative urged Ghana to prioritize youth employment, warning that rising joblessness could undermine economic gains, peace, and security. He further warned that unemployment among young people risks fueling social unrest, radicalization, and conflict, despite Ghana's reputation for stability. So we urgently must do the following, among others: align education with industry as a long-term strategy. The World Bank expands on this as follows: a key focus should be on the youth and the transition from school to work, ensuring that they have the skills needed for a modern economy to avoid underemployment and potential social unrest. B, invest in agribusiness, enterprise, and innovation. Talking about investment in innovation, Cabinet's approval in April this year of 250 million AI center to boost technology innovation. It's a step in the right direction. And so is government's 1 million Codex program launched in April 2025. C, prioritize, support, and incentivize private sector job creation. Real, sustainable private sector jobs. Not packing party supporters into government offices, doing nothing but getting a share of the 44% of tax revenue that goes to pay the public sector wage bill. The recently announced program that allows young Ghanaians to apply for loans for startup businesses ranging from 5,000 to 500,000 cedis under the government's 24-hour plus program sounds exciting if it will be successfully implemented. The sweetness of the pudding is in the eating. Please forgive me if I don't sound over-enthusiastic, because in Ghana, we have had National Youth Employment Program, Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, Youth Employment Agency, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, One District, One Factory, Planting for Food and Jobs, Planting for Food and Jobs 2, and yet we still import tomatoes and onions from Burkina Faso, and we don't have the jobs for the youth. So I can only hope that this 24-hour plus initiative will be a success. It must be. 2, fight corruption with visible consequences. Whenever democracy has been disrupted through uprisings or coup d'etat, whether here in Ghana or in other countries in Africa and elsewhere in the world, one of the main reasons almost always cited is corruption. It is therefore imperative to fight against corruption with visible consequences that assure citizens that the public purse is being protected. Here are some actions that citizens want to see taken. A, prosecute corrupt officials. B, enforce sanctions. C, protect and reward whistleblowers. And D, digitize governance. Professor Chair, ladies and gentlemen, kindly permit me to spend a bit of time to expand on this sub-recommendation, digitize governance. Estonia provides a tried and tested pathway with the country's digital governance through the real-time economy architecture and infrastructure. By reducing bureaucratic discretion through technology, Estonia has significantly limited opportunities for corruption and improved service delivery efficiency. Estonia was ranked 12 on the 2025 Corruption Perceptions Index, CPI, with a score of 76 out of 100, when Ghana scored 43. What is more, there is real-time income register, which means the state knows who is earning what, making it possible to have real-time taxation, which allows the state to broaden the tax net, and real-time asset reporting, which helps to fight against corruption. For decades, we keep talking about widening the tax net as well as fighting against corruption in Ghana. In 2020, I wrote about using what I called cash light and net worth aggregator to fight against corruption. This was published by and is still available on myjoyonline.com. The idea was supposed to be a technology-driven solution, combining limiting cash transactions with transparent real-time income and asset reporting to GRA that could provide an electronic trail of all economic transactions above a certain threshold, and hence remove the incentive and opportunity for corruption. Let us be honest with ourselves. We cannot claim to be seriously fighting against corruption when someone can just walk to a bank, withdraw 21 million cedis cash in jute bags, and go around sharing it as business promotion without a trace as to who received how much. The report of the audit into the 13th African Games became public after I had submitted my paper to the Academy. But please permit me to quote paragraph 219 of the report, which reads as follows. Our review identified large cash withdrawals amounting to 20.3 million cedis during the review period. We did not find any documentary evidence to support the purpose of these withdrawals, including approvals or justification for the use of large cash withdrawals. High cash dependence does not necessarily or automatically generate corruption. However, in countries with weaker institutional controls, high cash usage significantly elevates corruption risk by reducing transparency and traceability. Even the Auditor General couldn't trace the purpose for 20.3 million cedis who received what. Electronic payment systems provide a scalable mechanism for strengthening accountability, particularly in transitional and developing countries. To test this assertion, I did a desktop research while preparing for this forum. The results show a strong relationship between cash usage and corruption levels. Using the 2025 Corruption Perceptions Index, CPI, I ranked 81 countries on the CPI based on estimated volume of cash transactions in each country. A new Cash Transaction Prevalence Index, CTPI, was then generated. On the new CTPI, countries with lower cash usage score higher and vice versa. The CTPI was then compared to the 2025 CPI. While the relationship between the CTPI and the CPI will require further studies for validation, it is clear that countries with lower cash usage generally record higher scores on the CPI. The scatter graph projected on the screen illustrates this relationship, where countries with high scores on the CTPI, which implies a lower prevalence of cash usage, also generally have high scores on the CPI. The reverse is true of countries with low scores on the CTPI, as they generally have low scores on the CPI. And Ghana, you can see Ghana marked red. This correlation between the volume of cash transactions and corruption risks supports my call in 2020 to adopt policies and legislation to limit cash transactions as one of the tools for fighting against corruption. Because if the Auditor General cannot trace where 20.3 million went because it was in cash, how do you fight corruption under such an environment? So to begin with, I urge the Bank of Ghana to, as a monetary policy, limit the amount of cash that can be withdrawn over the counter from a bank account or a mobile money wallet within any 24-hour period. As a complementary measure, government on its part should, by amendments to the Companies Act and other legislations, require all public sector institutions, including metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies, state-owned enterprises, private sector businesses, including all registered SMEs, political parties in particular, candidates for elected office, as well as civil society organizations, to use only electronic payment systems to transact business, with punitive sanctions for violations. In Ghana today, you can conduct almost every financial transaction using electronic payment systems. So why do we need to conduct so many transactions in cash, even at the corporate level? Why should a contractor who has just received millions of cedis in mobilization go to the bank, withdraw millions of cedis in jute bags? What exactly is the contractor doing on the road that they cannot spend their money through electronic payment system? They need cash. If you're going to buy fuel, they take mobile money. You can transfer money to the filling station. If you are paying your staff, you can pay them by mobile money. You can transfer money to their bank accounts. What exactly does a road contractor need to do? For which reason, immediately after receiving mobilization from government, somebody has to withdraw huge amounts of cash? Your guess may be as good as mine. What we cannot agree on, though, is that electronic payments make corruption risky through digital footprint traceability. Electronic payments provide security against armed robbery and theft. Even if you are robbed of your mobile phone or forced by armed robbers to give up your mobile money PIN, for example, there will be a limit to how much cash they can withdraw from your wallet within 24 hours, which gives you a better chance of saving some of your money. And if they transfer your money to other mobile money wallets, there will be digital traceability for the security agencies to arrest the perpetrators and their accomplices. Digital payments reduce the incidence of hoarding foreign currencies in the homes of people, including politically exposed persons, as well as in offices of businesses and black market currency dealers and speculators. Hoarding of foreign currencies contributes to depreciation of the cedi and facilitates hiding corrupt, illicit, and laundered money. Electronic payments help to regulate campaign financing, which is a source of massive corruption that we are experiencing in this country. By limiting the amount of corrupt, illicit, and laundered money that finance the campaigns of political parties and candidates for elected office, if campaign donations cannot be received and spent in cash. Electronic payments could reduce in the long term Bank of Ghana's cost of printing and managing cash in circulation. At the end of the day, limiting cash transactions and enforcing electronic payments is not about having angels making decisions that affect the public purse. It is about ensuring that even the devil will think twice about stealing from the public purse, as there will be a high probability of getting caught because of digital footprint traceability. Recommendation 3, deepen decentralization. Let us give real power and resources to local governments. Implement the CRC recommendations by increasing the District Assembly Common Fund to 10%, not 7.5%, 10%, while ensuring that resources meant for local communities are spent by local authorities, not in Accra. Let us implement the CRC recommendation that a percentage of gross revenue generated from natural resource extraction be granted to communities where the resources are exploited for infrastructure needs, human development needs, as well as dealing with environmental challenges that might arise from natural resource extraction. Let us ensure that citizens see and experience development where they live. Decentralization must mean real local development and service delivery across the country. Let us embrace deeper decentralization instead of viewing it as a threat to the unitary state. 4, institutionalize citizen participation in governance. Let us implement CRC recommendations and provisions of the new Governance Advisory Council Act. Let us have participatory budgeting at all governance levels. Let us have citizen assemblies and regular town hall meetings with elected officials. You can have one in London, but we need one at my assembly, at the local community. We need town hall meetings with elected officials. Because when the CRC met citizens everywhere, most of the issues that people raised were not constitutional issues at all. They were regular, everyday issues that people are facing in their communities. But they don't see their MP, they don't see any elected official. And so they bottled up so much that once they had opportunity of the CRC engagements, people just vented out their frustrations. Let us have permanent and active engagement platforms accessible to citizens. 5, deliver quick visible results. We must restore democracy through tangible results that impact the lived experiences of citizens. Tangible results, not promises. Rwanda has pursued a development model characterized by performance monitoring, using performance contracts, referred to locally as imihigo, and rapid service delivery. Rwanda's GDP per capita is estimated at $1,040. Just 27% of Ghana's estimated GDP per capita of 3,860. And yet, while its political model differs from Ghana's, its emphasis on performance and results has sustained citizen confidence in their democracy and pride in their country. Their citizens are not running away the same way Ghanaian youth are seeking opportunities to escape. The lesson is clear. Democratic legitimacy is sustained when systems deliver consistently and visibly. Democracy, answer Oliver's question this way. As citizens, we have basic interests in our democracy. Being able to afford basic necessities of life, having access to health care when we need it most, without being turned away to go and die, either because there are no beds at the hospital or because we do not have money. Access to well-maintained roads and roadworthy public transportation and other basic infrastructure. Hopefully, the big push and other interventions under the current administration will address this. And most importantly, having leaders who protect the public purse rather than steal from it. As citizens, these interests are permanent and non-negotiable. So, if citizens are not willing to hold accountable a government we voted for, when that government fails to satisfy our permanent interests, then there's a problem. If citizens are not interested when democracy is not delivering for us what should be our fair share of the democratic dividend, then there's a problem. So let me conclude with this warning. If democracy does not deliver for the ordinary Ghanaian will not defend democracy. And when citizens stop defending democracy, history shows us exactly what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kweku. Now, I would like to invite Beauty Nate to take on the second topic. Shall we welcome them?
Good evening. Hey, I didn't hear the response. I believe the presentation was a bit overwhelming in terms of the issues that were being churned out, so I can understand. Distinguished Chair, Madam President, the Vice Presidents, distinguished fellows of the Academy, the Chairman of NCCE, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to stand on existing protocols. I am pleased to present this paper on my own behalf and on my co-author, my colleague Ebenezer Otu Okle. But rest assured that I'm going to give a very brief presentation given what we have already received. And I also want to use the opportunity to thank the Academy for creating the space where academia and practitioners can engage. And I believe this is a good way to go. So we'll commend you and encourage you to do more, especially at the district levels, so that we don't do it only in Accra. So thank you, Madam President. I believe the next one will go outside of Accra. Ghana is widely regarded as an African democratic success. In fact, when you travel to any part of this country, everybody tells you Ghana is a success story. Since the constitutional rule, when we returned to the 1992 Constitution, we have held 9 successive multi-party elections. We have experienced 4 peaceful transfers of power. And we have also been able to build key institutions such as the NCCE, EC, SHRAJ, the Auditor General, among others. Drawing on over 3 decades of Ghana's electoral democracy, there is a clear paradox at the heart of the country's democratic experiment. A citizenry that is increasingly aware of the rights, yet insufficiently engaged in holding leaders accountable. The Mo Ibrahim Foundation, through its Ibrahim Index of African Governance, has consistently ranked Ghana among the top 10 in governance performance across 54 African countries. These achievements are real and should not be taken lightly. But as we have already found out earlier, there is something visibly wrong in spite of all these credentials Ghana is supposed to have. Every year, the Auditor General's report documents an average of 2.36 billion cedis in procurement irregularities, ghost employees, fictitious payments, and unsupported expenditures. Regrettably, the 2022 report alone flags significant irregularities across multiple ministries, departments, and agencies. Yet, those responsible rarely face consequences. The Office of the Special Prosecutor, as we all know, established in 2017 under Act 959. We all had expectations of the office. Ghanaians saw the office as the solution to the problem. The office has secured some convictions, but the public perception is that it is here to prosecute high-profile cases that will signal a decisive shift in the fight against corruption in Ghana. Regrettably, we are in court defending the mandates of the office that is supposed to be fighting corruption in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, Parliament, which the 1992 Constitution designates as the primary check on the executive power, has in practice too often functioned as a forum for partisan competition rather than rigorous oversight. And we have seen the current issue and how we see the partisan positions playing out. The Public Accounts Committee hearings are held and reports are also presented, yet with remarkable regularity, nothing of consequence follows. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaians feel it. The Afrobarometer 2020 survey found that 74% of Ghanaians believe corruption increased over the previous year. Even after accounting for a slight 3 percentage points improvement on the previous round, that is nearly every 4 Ghanaian. In every 4 Ghanaian, 3 believe things are getting worse and not better. We are really confronted with a democracy that appears stable from the outside, but is increasingly fragile in its foundations of accountability. That paradox is where this paper begins. The standard response to Ghana's governance failures focuses almost entirely on elite behavior. Corrupt politicians, compromised judges, and captured institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not dispute that diagnosis, but we argue that it is incomplete. In his inaugural address in January 2017, the then President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, urged Ghanaians to become citizens and not spectators. It was a powerful appeal. But Asante observes that the ways in which people express civic belonging and participate in public life are deeply shaped by broader socioeconomic and political economic conditions. Calling for active citizenship without addressing the conditions that produce passivity is not enough. Our central claim is this: citizen inaction is not merely a symptom of democratic dysfunction. It is one of its structural causes. When citizens disengage from governance processes, tolerate impunity, and allow partisan loyalty to override accountability, they do not merely fail to prevent democratic erosion, they actively enable it. This is not an argument that blames ordinary Ghanaians for their government's failures. Poverty, institutional betrayal, and the rational calculations that make political passivity an understandable survival response must all be kept in view. But it is an argument that the path to democratic renewal runs through the activation and sustained mobilization of citizens as accountability actors, not as passive recipients of governance. Before building a culture of accountability, we must be clear about what we are building against. Citizen inaction is not treated as a moral accusation, but as an analytical category. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 distinct forms of disengagement are identified in Ghana. The first is electoral passivity beyond the ballot. Ghanaians vote, and according to the Electoral Commission, presidential and parliamentary election turnouts has ranged between 56% and 85% since 1992. And that is something that we should commend them for. And that is a real civic achievement. But as Hirschman showed in his influential framework on exit, voice, and loyalty, voting is only the most minimal form of democratic voice. Between elections, most citizens do not monitor the legislative records of their representatives. A democracy reduced to voting once every 4 years produces only a thin form of accountability. After the vote is cast, the work of citizenship does not end. It must begin. The second is the system of neglect of accountability institutions. Ghana has established all these institutions, and some of them are becoming decorative institutions because we have failed to support them to be able to undertake their mandates. But these institutions are important tools that citizens can use, yet they are chronically underused. The RTI Act, for instance, in its sixth year, but it has seen minimal uptake from citizens. Rodson argues the reason is not merely a lack of awareness. Through repeated experience, citizens have learned that these mechanisms rarely produce results. So the outcome is what we see, rational disengagement. Whether rational or not, this has the same practical effects as complicity. It removes the social pressure that will otherwise compel institutions to perform. The third and most structurally damaging is the reproduction of accountability deficits through partisan norms. The most significant of this in Ghana is the use of partisan identity as the primary lens for evaluating public performance. Citizens who loudly condemn corruption when committed by a politician from an opposing party often defend or minimize the same behavior when it involves someone from their own party. We have all seen this pattern, and I believe some of us gathered here have been guilty of this at some point. This double standard, ladies and gentlemen, does more than reveal inconsistency. It actively insulates corrupt actors from accountability by turning every demand for accountability into a partisan attack, and every defense of corruption into a demonstration of loyalty. In this way, social norms become a structural barrier to democratic accountability, and citizens, however unwittingly, become complicit in the erosion they decry. The consequences of this mindset extend beyond public discourse into the design and strengthening of accountability frameworks. One example is the apparent reluctance across the political divide to strengthen Ghana's asset declaration regime and conflicts of interest rules. The passage of the Conduct of Public Officers Bill to address these legislative weaknesses remain outstanding across political regimes. Even when we even included it in the IMF commitment, we are here and the Cocoa Bill is still outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, citizen disengagement does not arise simply from personal apathy. It is shaped by structural conditions that actively discourage engagement. And I wish to touch on three of them. The first is institutional impunity. When citizens observe year after year that the Auditor General's report document billions of cedis in financial irregularities, result in no prosecutions, that politicians accused of corruption are either reshuffled or given even better appointments, and they see whistleblowers who should be celebrated being victimized, they draw a rational conclusion: the accountability system is largely a facade. Pearson, Rodson, and Torah put it precisely that corruption is most persistent not when individuals lack values, but when they lack confidence that others will also act with integrity, making disengagement the dominant equilibrium. The problem is not moral failure alone. It is the structure of the incentives that rewards passivity and punishes engagement. Second is the entrenchment of political patronage. In context of widespread material deprivation, the relationship between citizens and politicians tend to be mediated by immediate personal benefits rather than policy performance. Lindbergh Nugget and CSOs such as the GACC, the CDD Ghana, and TI Ghana have thoroughly documented this in Ghana's electoral politics. The distribution of cash, food, T-shirts, and other material benefits around election is not marginal. It is a well-established feature of political competition. We used to talk about vote buying. Now we see vote selling because citizens are ready to sell their votes for the goods. When electoral support is brought patronage rather than earned through performance, citizens face a real material disincentive to demand accountability from the leaders on whom they depend for those benefits. Asking someone to hold their benefactor accountable is asking them to bite the hand that feeds them. And in Ghana, we don't have the ability to bite the hands that feed us. The third is the asymmetry of information in public financial governance. Even when government information is formally available, most citizens have no practical access to it. Budget documents are written in technical language inaccessible to non-specialists. Procurement records are scattered across poorly organized platforms. Audit reports are published but rarely communicated in accessible formats. Ackman and Sandoval Ballesteros identified this gap between formal transparency and functional accountability as one of the defining weaknesses of democratic governance in developing countries. Alt and Larsen find the same pattern comparatively. Physical transparency alone does not reduce corruption unless it is accompanied by active civil society engagement and a politically engaged citizenry. Taken together, three structural conditions demonstrate that citizen disengagement in Ghana is not merely a matter of individual indifference. It is the predictable outcome of institutional and socioeconomic realities that weaken incentives for participation. Any serious attempt to strengthen active citizenship must address these structural barriers, not simply call for greater public engagement. Democracies rarely die through coups alone, as was earlier mentioned. More commonly, they are gradually hollowed out by the slow erosion of norms, the incremental weakening of institutions, and the quiet acquiescence of citizens. This process is not driven by authoritarian actors alone. It is enabled at every step by citizen acquiescence. Three cases from Ghana's recent experience illustrate this dynamic clearly. Case 1, the persistence of procurement corruption. Ghana has one of the most comprehensive procurement regulatory frameworks in West Africa. The Public Procurement Act established competitive tendering thresholds and built review mechanisms for complaints. Ladies and gentlemen, on paper, this is a sound accountability architecture. In fact, we even have the GANEPS, which is an electronic procurement platform to help increase transparency of public procurement. But in practice, what do we see? The Auditor General's reports, as I shared earlier, consistently documented a pattern where single source without justification, payment for works not executed, and procurement committee compositions that violate the law. The Auditor General's constitutional powers of disallowance and surcharge under Article 187 of the Constitution is rarely invoked. We also see the Public Accounts Committee hearings being held, and I believe most of us here have witnessed some of those hearings on TV. Witnesses appear, and then what happens? Nothing of consequence happens. The fundamental enabling condition for this cycle is not weak laws or insufficient institutions. It is the absence of sustained, organized, citizen-driven political cause for non-compliance. Procurement corruption persists in Ghana because in the current political environment, it is largely cost-free for those who engage in it. The second one has to do with the fiscal transparency and fiscal accountability. Ghana's fiscal governance framework, anchored in the Public Financial Management Act, the annual budget processes, among others. But the challenge is that budget execution reports are published, citizens' budget documents are produced, but formal transparency does not automatically produce accountability. When citizens cannot connect budget decisions to service delivery outcomes or identify who made specific fiscal choices, they cannot make targeted accountability demands. They can register general dissatisfaction, but not the specific informed pressure that disciplines institutional behavior. Third one is electoral integrity and the limits of passive observation. Ghana witnessed post-election disputes in 2012 and 2020 regarding our presidential elections, which produced constitutional petitions that were dismissed by the Supreme Court. But they also exposed deep contestations about resource collation, biometric verification failure, and the conduct of security services. Asante and Jimabwedi raised legitimate questions that went beyond partisan dispute. The critical insight from this paper's perspective is that the most effective safeguard for electoral integrity is not the EC alone. Competent though it must be, active citizens will help monitor polling stations. They will scrutinize the collation of results, and they will challenge irregularities through legitimate channels and refuse to subordinate electoral accountability to partisan loyalty. When citizens are passive, electoral manipulation in any direction becomes structurally easier. As Mozaffar and Shedler argue, the quality of elections in emerging democracies depends not only on the formal independence of electoral management bodies, but also on effective oversight and active monitoring by civil society and citizens. Building a culture of accountability in Ghana requires a fundamental shift from passive citizenship to active organized engagement. This shift, we argue, rests on three key elements. The first is practical civic education, moving beyond awareness of rights to equipping citizens with the skills to use accountability tools effectively. For instance, how many in this room know how to put in an RTI request? Can I see by hand? So, Your guess is as good as mine, and the work that we need to do. Secondly, is a strong civil society, not working in isolation, but collaborating with citizens to have collective activism. In fact, the question I ask, if any of the civil society organizations are shut down, how many citizens would we see outside demonstrating? But touch one political actor and we see citizens out demonstrating. And that is why we need to change the approach. Collective action is essential to overcome power imbalances, sustain advocacy, and amplify citizens' voices. But this depends on protected civic space and public trust. The third is the political engagement over moral appeals. Accountability must be treated as a political process, driven by organized citizens' demand, sustained pressure, and active monitoring, rather by ethical expectations alone. We need to combine this if we really want to achieve active citizen engagement. Overall, meaningful accountability emerges from informed, organized, and politically engaged citizens who actively exercise their rights. Ghana endured some financial stress, during the 2022 to 2024 crisis. And the World Bank documented that the situation pushed 850,000 citizens into poverty. And the domestic debt exchange restructured the savings of pensioners, bondholders, and ordinary investors. In fact, it was the first time Ghana had to do a domestic debt exchange. But the opportunity that came with that stress is that for the first time in our democratic history, fiscal governance entered everyday public conversations. People knew what they call the haircuts. Citizens who had never engaged with concepts such as Eurobonds, debt to GDP ratios, etc., we're now actively discussing those issues because it has come so close. And this is precisely the kind of informed, emotionally engaged citizen demand for accountability that democratic systems require to function. The question before us today is whether we have the strategic capacity to channel this energy into sustained, organized demands for accountability, rather than allowing it to dissipate into frustration or be captured by partisan mobilization. I would like to reflect some key recommendations for the way forward. I wish to recommend to the state that we need to implement the RTI Act fully, even as we saw the data here, that people are not able to put in a request for information. We also need to enact a robust asset declaration regime. In fact, that is long overdue. And we also need to enforce clear consequences for procurement and financial irregularities, because most of the country's budget goes into procurement. We also want to encourage civil society to focus on simplifying and disseminating accountability information by building cross-partisan coalitions. We cannot do it alone. We can no longer stand alone. We need to get cross-partisan coalition to expand engagement beyond the Accras and go and strengthen local accountability systems. We encourage citizens in governance to engage in governance beyond elections. Don't go and queue. In fact, some even wake up at dawn to go and form the queue and vote. So don't go and queue and then go back and sleep. I believe some of you here will be new voters in the next election. How many of you has voted? I mean, the students. Okay, so it means you'll be voting possibly in the new elections. Please, when you vote, after casting your vote, when you go home, still engage in the governance process because you need to protect the governance. We also note that the overall recommendation underscores the strengthening of accountability, requires coordinated action across states, institutions, civil society, and citizens, supported by sustained and organized civic engagement. We should recognize that active citizenship carries real costs, including time, effort, and also potential risk, and makes it essential to protect and support accountability actors such as whistleblowers and civic advocates to sustain long-term engagement. In closing, I would like to say that democracy cannot survive as a formal structure alone. It must be actively practiced. Ghana's institutions remain in place, but their effectiveness depends on how, as citizens, we are able to engage and assist them to work. The evidence is clear. Where citizens are active, institutions respond. Where citizens are silent, impunity thrives. The transformation from passive spectators to active citizens is therefore not optional, it is essential. That is the democracy responsibility of our time. Thank you for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think the seats have become hot. Can we just lift ourselves a little? Do a little bit of aerobic? Yes, it's good. It's good to keep alive. All right, you may sit down. This is the time for questions. This is the time for questions, and I want to invite anyone who has any question to ask. And all that I need is to be able to see your hand. And then the microphone will be brought to you. When you receive the microphone, please mention your name. And if you are here as a student, let us know which school you are coming from. All other people can mention their names and indicate their connection. So the floor is open. The seats have become cool now, so we can endure another 15 minutes or so.
Good evening. My name is Kelvin Kwanzaa, and I'm from Presbyterian Boys Secondary School, Legon. Okay, so from the topic, why citizen apathy threatens Ghana's democratic future? So my question is it morally fair to call citizens apathetic when the system has failed to give them the belief that their participation matters. Thank you very much.
Did you mention your name?
Yes, sir. Kelvin Kwanzaa.
Aha, okay. Thank you.
My name is Josiah Nioblite.
Speak as a man, right?
My name is Josiah Nioblite. My question goes to Mr. Kweku. During your discussion, you mentioned something about digitization of the government. Some people fear that through digitization, there will be a form of like easier way for someone to cheat the system, because the person might be able to control that system in a sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll deal with these two questions. Sometimes when it starts like, oh, okay, there's a third one. All right.
Okay. Please, my name is Kelvin Asan.
Please, aha.
My name is Kelvin Asan, and I'm from the Presbyterian Boys Secondary School, Legon. My question is, based on the advantages, would transition into a completely digitized governance be the best for Ghana's future? Thank you.
Did you get that one too? Okay. Sometimes it starts slowly like that. Then it builds up after some answers have been provided. Yes, Mama.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name is Kathy Addy, and I'm from the National Commission for Civic Education. And I want to ask a specific question about the Auditor General. I think it's Article 187, right? That enjoins or gives the Auditor General the power to surcharge or disallow. They are actually constitutionally mandated to do so. But as we all know, we year in, year out, even though the report comes out and we see so many infractions, we are yet to see this disallowance or they have discharge, whatever. Sorry. Yes, surcharging and we are yet to see any of it. So if the Auditor General, which is an independent state institution, has a constitutional mandate and all the power to disallow infractions that they themselves have confirmed, it's baffling to me. So what is the way forward then? Because if a big institution with a big mandate and big powers doesn't seem to be able to do what they are supposed to do, how do you expect ordinary citizens to engage in ensuring that we reduce corruption in the country? I'm very curious. Maybe can I...
Thank you. Okay, I have another one there. Let's allow. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Precious Osei. I'm a guest. Okay, so my question is that, do you, and it goes to the two of you, with everything that you have said, do you believe that democracy is the best form of governance for Ghana? I say this because in Ghana we have monarchies and the whole country practice democracy, whilst others also practice monarchy, as compared to the United States where there is no monarchy. So would you still recommend democracy as the ultimate or the best form of governance for Ghana?
Okay, I'll draw the line for the moment. Let's listen. Let's listen to the answers to the first 5 questions, then I'll open the floor once again. So, between Kweku and Beauty, maybe you will take turns to answer those questions that relate to your presentation.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. Is it fair to call citizens apathetic? No, my presentation did not seek to call citizens apathetic. Actually, my presentation is to warn against creating an environment where citizens disengage, which allows corruption, lack of accountability, low engagement, and all these things to become a vicious cycle which allows democracy to decline. And when that happens, we know the consequences in other countries where citizens basically check out. And so I'm not calling citizens apathetic, but when apathy sets in, citizens stop defending democracy. When you have citizens, seeing nothing wrong with other alternatives like military interventions, then you should be worried. So that is what I'm trying to say. We should not create a situation where citizens actually become pathetic, because that is dangerous for our democracy. Now, control of digital systems. Yes, we can be afraid, so much afraid of going there because something can go wrong. This is a global village. We are not alone in this world. Other people are doing it. Other people have systems, security systems. In fact, we have National Cyber Security Authority. So there are systems, there is technology. I wholly understand that, yes, you can have hackers hack into your systems. But look, the world is not going back. The world is going forward. Any system that prevents corruption. Now, I want you to think about this. $3 billion annually is lost through corruption. Try to imagine what that can do. When Ghana went to the IMF, for 3 years, all that they gave us is $3 billion. And we lose that every year through corruption. If avoiding cash transactions and insisting on digital payments is what will save us $3 billion annually, I am all for it. Look, what happens in reality is this. So, she mentioned procurement, corruption. Before a contract is awarded, people sit in rooms, agree who is going to get how much, top up the contract price, and then our government pays the contractor. Why is it that corporate institutions that have access to all electronic payment systems will choose to go to a bank, withdraw millions of cedis in cash? To do what? It is simple. They've decided who is going to get how much, and that has to be paid in cash. Once it is paid in cash, corruption has several years advantage, and anti-corruption institutions are now lacing their boots to play catch-up. By the time the Auditor General gets there, by the time the Special Prosecutor gets there, it's gone. And it's cash. There's nothing you can't trace it. And that is why I've worked as an auditor before, but I'm saying, you go to any company that has won contract from government before, you will find excessive withdrawal of cash in their books. And always, when it is cash transaction, it is described as other expenditure, miscellaneous. You will never find any cash transaction with direct allocation that shows it was used for this particular expense. And almost always, there will be no receipts. So it's as simple as that. If we want to stop corruption or reduce corruption, make sure people don't have the opportunity or incentive. Because for most of the people, the officials who receive the cash, if you told them to give you their bank account or mobile money account to transfer, they will not do it. Because they know, once it is electronic, at some point, however long it takes, an auditor or anti-corruption agent will be able to trace it to them, and then they will be brought to book. That's why it's always cash. Drug dealers, all the illicit funds that actually finance our elections, finance persons who contest for elected office, it's always cash because they don't want to be traced. So let's not fear digitalization. Other countries are doing it, and as I showed with the scatter graph, you will find that countries that digitalize always score high on the CPI. It's because even if, look, there are no angels anywhere. You'll find corrupt people in Estonia and in all the countries that score high on the CPI. However, because of traceability, people are reluctant to engage in corruption because they can be caught so easily. And that is what I'm proposing, that if we want to fight against corruption, if we want to avoid losing $3 billion annually, let's cut out these excessive cash transactions. Do we believe that democracy is the best form of governance? I've lived under military dictatorship as a young boy growing up. I saw people being beaten by soldiers, PDCs, lashing people. I mean, whatever abuse you can imagine, I witnessed it as a young boy, and it's lodged firmly in my memory. And I've seen democracy. I've voted in every election since 1992. I will choose democracy every day because the alternative, as they say in Ghana's politics, is scary. Sometimes on social media, young people, sort of fantasize about, military leaders and other alternatives. It's because you've not experienced what it is to be told to sleep at 6 o'clock and to have soldiers beating people for absolutely no reason. So I would choose democracy. It may not be perfect, but if all these systems that we're talking about, accountability and checks and balances, if we are able to enforce these measures, democracy will improve our lives. That is what it's supposed to be, and we will be better off, quite frankly, under democracy than the alternative. I mean, also, let's face it, the military dictators we've had did not change anything. They only brutalized people and achieved nothing different from what they said they were coming to eliminate. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will not repeat what he's already said, but just to also explain why we see some form of citizen apathy. It's because we expect citizens to do certain things to ensure that they hold duty bearers to account. If we all sit aloof, it means that we are allowing people to do things that would affect us ultimately. Let me cite the example of Galamsey. There are some communities who have said no to Galamsey, despite efforts to have mining in their communities. They stood their grounds and said no. Do they have a different blood running in them? Do they look different from the ordinary Ghanaian? No. If you have to watch somebody pollute your water, the drinking water, to the point that you have to buy sachet water to cook, and you can sit aloof and watch, then there's a problem. So that is why we think that as citizens, the Constitution has given us a responsibility, and we need to live to that responsibility. I also understand your fear about the digitization. It's true that things happen, and I know some of you have experienced even the school placement, which is supposed to be electronic. And I believe some of you here, parents paid monies for you to get admissions, even though we said there was a system of placement. So some of the experiences that you have had increases your mistrust of institutions and systems. But we need to make progress. We need to ensure that we will move and show results in terms of Ghana's governance. With regards to the issue of the Auditor General, I know it has been an issue that has been on the hearts of us civil society. We have even championed efforts, campaign. The truth is that it took Occupy Ghana in 2017 to get a Supreme Court ruling that allowed the Auditor General to exercise a mandate that it already has. And that for us was even another story for another time. But we saw the previous Auditor General exercise that mandate. And again, when he was kicked out of office, we all sat and looked. In fact, we didn't even get anybody going out to say we are going to demonstrate, bring Domolevo back. You know, we did some work around it, but we didn't get him back. But the point is that how is the audit or Ghana Audit Service positioning itself to ensure that it has the evidence when it comes to this allowance and surcharge? So most times, some of the issues they have, they are contested and they lose the cases. I will cite the case of Sierra Leone, where the audit institution had an MOU with the anti-corruption institution. So for clarity, like our Ghana Audit Service having an MOU with the Office of the Special Prosecutor so that they audit together. What it means is that whereas the auditor is looking for things that pertain to audit, you have the corruption prosecutor also looking for things that pertain, because the two may not be looking at the same thing. And it helped to be able to identify these issues, gather the evidence, because what happens by the time the report is issued, the evidence is not there, and you can't go to court without evidence. But when you are doing it with the anti-corruption institution, what it means that all those evidence are documented right there. So by the time you go to court, you have solid evidence to be able to prosecute some of these cases. So we need to do a lot more that can help us deliver on the goods. And I also agree with him. In fact, I will not trade democracy for anything else. I have seen the military regime. I know most of our young people only see military regime in movies, and then some also see illusions of what is military. But some of us who saw it know that democracy is better. Maybe what we should ask is there a way we can have our own form of democracy and own it? That would be a conversation we could also look at. But definitely, democracy is the way forward, but we could look at it in a different lens that will suit our own situation. I think that's the...
Okay, I saw a hand over there. Are there any more hands so I can close the... Oh, okay. All right, so you are number one, the one in white shirt, and then the two of you. Oh, okay, 1, 2, 3. There was a fourth person. Okay, there are 3 hands now, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, my name is Ebenezer Oakley, and I'm from the Economic Governance Platform, hosted by the Ghana Corruption Coalition. And my question goes to Mr. Kweku. I agree with you largely on your recommendation for the government to make sure that transactions are done electronically. And we have pushed severally for the givings to be enhanced. But I want to move more to the citizenry itself. Currently, we have about 75 million Ghanaians or registered on money, because there can be multiple registration by one person. So we have about 75 million, and annually we can see about 3 trillion transactions in value in money transactions. Clearly, it tells us that Ghanaians are accepting electronic transactions. Yes, but I want to ask, when it comes to the risk involved in that, because fintech, there are a lot of fintech companies coming up. And when it comes to competition, we don't see it. When it comes to the market share, MTN has about 70% of the market share. So when we are talking about dealing with money, it means that the people have to be protected. And when there is no competition, there is no incentive to enhance, to do better or to make sure that you are doing well. So I want to ask, when it comes to regulating these fintech companies, because when they wound up, then it means that it becomes a cost to the citizenry. In as much as we are encouraging them
Please, straight to your question.
Simply, I want to know how can we regulate them well and also ensure that there is competition in the market or in the industry. Thank you.
Now, number 2 and then number 3 over there.
My name is Matthew Abu Kwesi from Presbyterian Boys Secondary School. My question is about unemployment, and it goes to Mr. Kweku Entry. I am a 17-year-old Christian gentleman, but I have witnessed that the rate of rich people or students are unemployed in our country is very high. Students are now afraid to go to school because they know what will happen to them when they are done schooling with their hard work in school. How can this thought be removed from the youth coming? Some thought of the people and students is that they would rather sell sobolo at the street instead of going to school to become unemployed in the country. So how can this thought be removed from the youth coming? Thank you.
So my name is Nino T. Trinity, and my question is, putting aside the abuse of human rights, what is your take on unconstitutional overthrow if it provides necessary actions for the youth of the country?
Thank you. Do I see another hand somewhere?
Please, with regards to uprising and protests and its role in ensuring that corruption is dealt with, how effective will this be in Ghana or regarding our current situation?
Thank you very much. I thought I saw a hand over there. Yeah. Oh, 3 hands. Wonderful. I'll allow all of you to ask your questions. Oh, okay. Excuse me. The last person who asked the question, your question was not clear to the speaker. So if you can just be very clear.
How effective would uprising and protests be in Ghana to solve corruption?
Okay, thank you. Now you can give it to my 3 ladies.
My name is Efriye Brianna Nana Ama. I'm a student of Laboni Senior High. And in the first topic on why citizen apathy threatens Ghana's democratic future, you touched on the youth. You said to treat youth unemployment as a national security threat because it is, and you said to prepare the youth for employment. You also mentioned that a study showed that within the next 10 years, the youth is to be more unemployed. A larger percentage of the youth is to be unemployed within the next 10 years. The future of the country depends on the youth. So my question is, how exactly are new youth employment and empowerment programs to be implemented when almost all past attempts have, in a sense, failed or haven't had as much as an effect of that we've expected? Thank you.
Thank you. The next.
My name is Sandra Ayamchi. I'm also a student of Laboni SHS. So, in regards to the statement, citizens should build a culture of accountability in our democracy. I want to ask, what sense of safety does the democracy, which we are supposed to build a culture of accountability to, create to the citizen? Like, how is the democracy creating a sense of safety for us to also implement same to also create a sense of accountability to them? Thank you.
Now the last questioner.
So my name is Shoda Kranchi from Laboni Senior High School, and I just wanted to ask if the solutions given would actually leave this room.
Okay. This is a beautiful assembly of questions which I believe we are going to do justice to. So I'll ask my panelists to provide answers.
Okay. So in terms of regulation of the fintech ecosystem. I think Bank of Ghana has a handle on regulation. When it comes to competition, however, it's an open field. It depends on each institution. You cannot force. We don't have antitrust laws in Ghana, for instance, that will say this company is too large, you have to break up. We don't have that kind of regulation in Ghana as you would have elsewhere in Europe and the US, where a dominant player can be forced to break up or provide certain opportunities for smaller companies to be able to emerge. But when you talk about risks, the thing is, the fact that MTN is a dominant player per se does not make the fintech environment risky. What you would find from Bank of Ghana report, Fintech Report 2024, for instance, you mentioned 3 trillion transactions. It's not, there are several different, several different operations going on. You have cash out, cash in, agent to agent, and all these things are happening. In fact, cash out in terms of value constitutes only 10% of the entire fintech ecosystem. So people are just transacting business electronically, not necessarily withdrawing cash. That constitutes only 10%. And that's why it's quite baffling that ordinary people are actually buying into electronic payment systems, whereas corporate institutions, companies, contractors who are doing big money transactions and procurement, government procurement, are rather using cash just because they want to hide their corrupt activities, as simple as that. And that is why I am calling for more regulation in terms of limiting cash transactions. Because, look, the $3 billion that we lose annually, it's not lost at Makola Market or Santana Market or Kotokraba Market. Where we lose the money is where this proposal is targeting, because that is where the corruption takes place. And that is why it will be a fight to get government to, and then Bank of Ghana for that matter, to accept this proposal, because the gatekeepers, knowing they are complicit in the corruption, will fight it. All the politicians, how is it that a politician in Ghana, somebody enters politics with nothing and yet is able to spend $650,000 on their campaign? And yet you won't find $1 on record as to where it came from. The amount of money that they spend during campaign. They don't print the money here. Somebody gives the money to them, and those people are not charity people. They give the money with the expectation that if these candidates win, we will get our returns. And how will they get the returns? Through corruption. So your money is being stolen from you, from your education infrastructure in school and other systems that should benefit all of us. Is going to these financiers of political parties and candidates. And that's why I know everybody can understand how limiting cash will stop or at least reduce significantly the incidence of corruption. But the very people who have to take the decision to stop it are the very people who are beneficiaries. So you and I have a task on our hands, and I can say this anywhere without fear, that if we don't limit cash transactions, we will not succeed in fighting corruption, because by the time the Auditor General goes there 3 years, 4 years later, it's too late. You can't trace cash transaction by audit. I've been an auditor before. You can't do it. Auditor General just reported 2023 African Games, 20.3 million cedis. They can't trace who received it, for what purpose was the cash withdrawn. It's gone. And you and I are now having to foot that bill because the games actually recorded a loss. And that loss is now sitting in the name of Ghana, 208 million cedis that has to be paid. That money could go to any of our schools. So it's a serious issue. When you see so much cash being moved around, it is as simple as ABC. Corruption is hiding behind all of that. Unemployment, fear of unemployment, making some people avoid going to school. I totally understand that fear. But, you are better off at least having a foundation. Having a foundation in education. Because, it's really hard. How long can you stand in the sun and sell sobolo? It's not about today. Maybe you can make some money today, but it's not sustainable. Now, again, that ties in with the other question about initiatives. So we are all calling for some of the initiatives that are being rolled out to be implemented in a way that achieve the intended goals. Yes, and I listed a number of initiatives in the past that have not been successful. But that's why we are sounding the warning that don't joke with these initiatives, because jeopardizing the future of young people. And if you do that, there is headwinds and there is risk, danger ahead for our democracy. Because today you may engage in corruption, your house and all of that, but when things blow up, I can use one politician from the Upper East as an example. When conflict broke out, his house was burnt down. Okay? It's criminal, it's not nice. But what I'm saying is that if our leaders don't heed the warning and allow these systems to work such that these initiatives for youth employment will succeed, there is danger ahead for all of us, including them. If you are young and things get bad, you still have an opportunity. If you are older, by the time things explode in our faces, you are more vulnerable than the young people that you failed to assist and support. So, yes, the fear is genuine, but as I said, you are better off having some grounding in education, because that will give you the opportunity to at least take advantage of some of the initiatives that our governments will roll out now or in the future. How effective will the new initiatives be to address youth unemployment when past initiatives fail? Our governments know why such initiatives failed. And most of us know if they want to learn lessons, they can learn lessons from the past. For me, past failure is as good as helping you to learn lessons and to be able to improve upon how you go about new initiatives. What I detest about our governments is that they initiate projects not because they couldn't improve upon the previous one, but because it's a new government, I have to do my own thing. Take affordable housing, for instance. In many parts of the world, at least where I have been, or at least I have studied, it is the local council, the district assembly in our context, that provides affordable housing. Here, our governments, central government insists on affordable housing projects just for the procurement gig they can get out of it. And since President Kufuor, all the affordable housing projects that they have started, none of them is able to complete. And when there's a changeover, the new government abandons what the other started and starts a new one, all for the purpose of procurement contract. And so we waste public resources, and in some cases we borrow the money, which you and I, as future generation, will pay, and yet we leave these houses to rot after spending public money on them. We believe that they are going to heed the warning signals that we are sending to them, and so hopefully they are going to take these new initiatives seriously in anticipation that things are going to get easier, because every year a lot more of young people are coming out of school. And so the number of unemployed youth is not decreasing. And for which reason our government must double their effort if we are to avoid all these future challenges. Thank you.
Well, I want to sympathize with the question about the mindset in terms of going to school and coming out, no jobs, and which is discouraging people from going to school. The truth is that the kind of educational systems we have are not helping us to come back out of school well equipped. So we go to school with the mindset that government will employ us. And that's why I allowed the STEM initiative that is now being brought up. But we need to do more of that. If you go to China, the school system, even young children are experimenting technology. They are doing a lot of technological stuff, and I understand some of the things they produce may be done by school children. So we need a shift in our educational system where you are being equipped to employ yourself, not to come and depend on government. If we're able to do that, it will reduce the demand on government employment. Because once you are even in school, you are already working anyway, because you could put to use some of the things you are studying. So I want to encourage those of you here that even though the educational system is not created to support you get hands-on, take advantage of practical opportunities when we were younger, we used to see those who were learning hairdressing, tailoring. We used to look down on them. But trust me, some of my friends, the money they earn, I haven't seen in a month. It's nothing close to what I earn. They are making money, and people are selling online. A friend of mine in the US is ordering from somebody in Ghana she has never met. But she's able to make dresses for her. So the things that we look down on, we need to change our mindset and start engaging those. And to my Laboni question, if you Laboni students, you didn't ask question, you would have made me sad because I'm an old student. Oh, see, so today is the Laboni day. So thank you for asking those challenging questions. But I want to say that we are not here to say this and then we go and sleep. It's a collective responsibility. We all have a role to play. So all the things we are talking about, we are also inspiring you to go out there, to start looking at things differently. The little change that you can make will contribute to make an impact in Ghana's development. So we all have a role to play. I don't think the Academy wasted time and resources to bring us here and just allow us to go away and then go and sleep. But we need to see a change. And as I already challenged you, you are now preparing to vote. Vote responsibly. Don't vote because somebody gave you money. Don't vote because your father said, as for us, we vote MPP all the time, or we vote NDC all the time. So these are the issues that we are bringing to your attention. And we pray that in the next 10 years, you will lead the change that Ghana needs. Thank you very much.
I believe you can join me in saying thank you to the speakers. Shall we do that? Thank you very much, MFA. Thank you very much, Kweku. Ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sure I'm also speaking to our fellows who are online, it's just a very brief reflection. Somebody may be asking, why is the Academy interested in these sort of things? And it's a very basic question which must be answered now. You know, the Academy is a state institution, which means we are a state organization. We are not an NGO, and we were founded for a specific purpose. And the founding indicated a desire that there should be an aggregation of the highest level of intellectuals, experts, and professionals in the country to constitute a think tank. A think tank is more or less a generation of ideas that will assist in national development. And one of the areas which has promoted the desire to go into town to talk about this particular theme is in our fourth objective. And I will read it to you. It says, contribute actively to the development of Ghana and Africa generally by examining and addressing critical issues of development. You will notice that our speakers have actually said many, many, many things. And I wouldn't want to start trying to summarize. I mean, I'll be leaving very, very vital issues which you already have heard. Now, what is going to happen? The Academy is going to look at all of these and bring them to the attention. We will distill and provide something for being a think tank. All that we do is, this is what we see happening. If you haven't seen it, this is what we see happening. And inviting all of these speakers, the 3 days, from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the whole idea is we are sampling ideas to answer this theme which is before us. And the theme is Citizens and Democratic Consolidation in Ghana. Rights, obligations, and duties. Now, if I can just make one small point. 3 weeks ago, there was something on television. Somebody had gone in an audacious manner to uproot solar lamp. And everybody, I mean, the one who took the picture, I was asking myself, he's seen this person doing this, and he is carrying it on his shoulders to his house. According to him, he doesn't have any light. He's not connected to electricity, and that is his way of getting light. Where is the responsibility? There was the other case in which, in a high court proceedings, the clock, like this. Somebody in a workman's apparel, in a ladder, just walked into the courtroom, got onto the ladder, removed the clock, and walked away. Nobody asked him any question. What we are actually indicating here is that we have to be responsible to our own welfare. And that is what we refer to as democracy. Democracy, sometimes people will say, is freedom. So I asked the question, and that question popped up, I think 2 days or the day before, or yesterday. Freedom for what? And freedom from what? These are the answers that we need to present for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I will stand on your behalf to say a big thank you to our speakers and also to you, the audience, both in present here and those online. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our chairperson. I think our chairperson also deserves a clap. He has steered the affairs of this evening's session, and I believe we have learned a lot. I have certainly learned a lot. At a point, I got angry about some of the things that I'm hearing because they make us sad and make us feel like we want to do something about it. So before you came here, maybe you haven't heard these things. Now you have heard. You cannot unhear. And so you cannot go back and do the same thing. So one question that I am leaving here is, will I defend Ghana's democracy? Will you also defend Ghana's democracy? Let's think about this. Once again, let's put our hands together for our speakers. And let me use this opportunity to also say a big thank you for all the speakers who spoke from Monday up to now. Now, we are coming to the end. Let me also appreciate the students. If you were not here today, it would be just a few of us. So we really appreciate your coming here. Laboni Secondary School, let's put our hands together for them. And then also Presbyterian Boys SHS. Let's put our hands together for them. We really appreciate your coming. Keep engaging with these issues, not only in secondary school, all through your life. Now, a few announcements. So next week, we have another event that is coming on. It's an inaugural lecture. This is an opportunity by one of our fellows to tell us about her work. And so this will be given by Professor Ibok Odro. He's a fellow of the Academy, and it is coming on Thursday, 11th June, here in this same auditorium, and the time is 5:30 p.m. So in the room and online, you are all invited. The title of the talk is Hidden Harvest, Reclaiming Africa's Plate. Now, the title is very interesting, so we should make it a point to join. Now, the last thing is that when you get out, there is light refreshment, so make sure that you pick one for yourself, and then that is it for this evening. So thank you very much for coming. At this point, shall we be upstanding so that the speakers and those on the high table would recess? Thank you.
I want to be a rapper.